Welcome, friends, and today we are going to discuss the current transits. And after having taken a hiatus of almost 10 months from Karmic Path, we are returning back with a new set or series of videos. Hopefully, you should like it, and let's begin. So, Mars, as you know, is going to come in the sign of Virgo on the 6th of September and is going to be there till 21st of October 2021. So, how's it going to affect most of our nativities, and what kind of changes is it going to bring? Normally, as a general rule, the superior planets, which is Jupiter, Saturn, and normally Jupiter and Saturn, they are the ones which are basically taken as major points of transit, including Rahu and Ketu also, according to Vedic studies, Vedic astrology, that they seem to affect our human affairs more. But then one of the good points about transit videos is that the results that you basically get in transit videos are also the ones that you're going to get in your dasha videos, because whether it's a transit or whether it's a dasha lord or a sub lord or a placement in your chart, the planet's behavior is going to be the same. Of course, if the planet is going to transit over some other planet in your natal D1 or D9, D60, whatever, then of course the behavior modifies. But otherwise, from a learning perspective, knowing these transits actually helps you fine tune the knowledge about your own chart as well, whether it's for any divisional chart, mainly D1 and D9. So before we get into those details, let's just focus on the topic for today, which is transit of Mars in Virgo. So now basically, before we get into the transit of Mars in Virgo, what is Virgo? So Virgo is one of those signs where, as you say, literally it's a sign of the Virgin, but then it's a slightly it's a word which is basically overloaded. Now, what do I mean by overloaded? The sixth sign is basically the 12th from the 7th, or you can say the sixth Rashi, or the sixth, you can say, sign again, is basically 12th from the 7th, which means it dissolves the nature and properties of the sign which is in the 7th Rashi, which is Libra. So it's called the Virgin because 12th from the 7th dissolves the 7th, hence means it breaks the 7th. So if in the 7th house or in the 7th Rashi you're getting married, in the 6th you are basically dissolving your own marriage, which means you're going to be single. So that's why it's a sign of the Virgin. Now that's a very encoded way of basically saying that, okay, it's a sign of basically staying single, or it's a sign of basically breaking relationships. So now before we get into any sadder variations of the sign, let's basically look at the sixth sign itself. So as the typical Vedic astrology textbooks would say, it's the sign of Rog, Rina and Shatru. So Rog is basically diseases, Rina is debts, and Shatru is basically enemies. Doesn't sound like a very beautiful explanation, or you can say a beautiful set of portfolio of activities which belong to the sign. But it's okay. I mean, it's one of the natural sixth house of pending karma. Now, um, basically, pending karma can be derived from any other house, but why the sixth house? Because 6, 8, 12 are the dushthanas, or you can say houses which create impediments in your life in different ways, and hence are basically associated with pending karma. But coming back to the properties of Virgo itself, Virgo, in spite of all its negative, you can say, characteristics, also is a sign of getting clarity, or the sign of basically getting clear about what you really want, and clearing out the clutter in your life, basically extracting sense out of clutter. So if you have a planet like Mars which is sitting in Virgo, it's actually a very good planet for data scientists or people who are into machining and tooling, who have to basically extract the right machine parts, or make the right machine parts work out of the crap, or you can say the junk of metal things, or electronic or electrical items thrown at them, or machinery parts thrown at them. Also, the sixth house is the house of service and practice. It's a sign of working daily, or daily routine, or something which is done ritualistically and as a habit, or as a part of your daily work schedule. Now, if we look at the nature of Mars, now Mars is a logical thinker who's also a problem solver. Normally, when you think of Mars, Mars is basically a planet which is looked upon as a planet uh, which is highly action oriented. Typically, you would see people in the armed services, basically the police, people who are on the armed services who are trying to protect a country, protect a nation, even the security guard who's actually trying to basically protect your office premises or the or the residential premises. They're typically Martian portfolios. Or anybody who's actually out there on the street who's basically trying to protect normal citizens from any kind of mishap from happening. He's actually taking the role of Mars. So, what's an ideal Mars? An ideal Mars is somebody who, like a soldier or a protector, takes ownership of the end goal and makes sure that the end goal is reached, and you are safe, you are protected. So, Mars does not look at the rewards it is getting; it is only interested in your end goal. That I should get what I set out to do. So it's also one of the planets for engineers or any kind of technical work that you plan to do. Of course, Mars is a planet of energy, burst of energy. It's also the planet of new initiatives, in the sense people who want to do daring actions, daring deeds, people who want to break boundaries, people who want to set new records, people who want to basically go beyond the limits that are set out for them. They are typically Martian professions as well. I mean, Rahu also tends to break boundaries, but in a dubious way, not in the way Mars would do, which is a slightly more ethical way. And as you can see, the fourth point, I mean, look, if you look at conflicts, war, accidents, blood, cuts, mishaps, I mean, all the blood, gory, and dreadful things that you can associate with Mars. But then, essentially, Mars is the life force which moves the human body and makes it do all the karma that it needs to go out and do, set out and do. And the energy that you need, and the fearlessness that you need, and the focus that you need, these are all coming from Mars. Now, let's basically get to the point of Mars being in Virgo. Now, Mars and Virgo together do not make a very ideal combination, because Mercury is the prince, it's a child. Mercury is the imitator. Mercury is a planet where the Martian property of being brave gets basically stifled or curtailed, because in the house of Mercury, which is that of a child, which is that of not a very aggressive person, but of a person who has limitations. Because Mercury, being the prince, is not a fully grown man. It's a follower. It's a learner. It's somebody who's playing around. So words are the only weapon that Mercury has. So Mars, basically in this sign of Virgo, typically tends to get stifled, tends to get basically not feel very happy, because it tends to promote verbal arguments. So imagine you have Mars in the sixth house, in the sixth Rashi of the Kala Purush. So what happens? I mean, it's going to create lots of strife based on verbal arguments. Why? Because Mercury is one of the uh, planets of communication. But then Virgo, as you can see, is the sign of problem solving. So Mars here tends to feel that I can solve problems by finding faults, or by bringing clarity, by basically uh, arguing my way out, or logically solve my problems by basically, uh, fighting with things or opportunities which are around me and getting clarity around it. Now, so some of the things which we can say Mars in the sign of Virgo tends to basically bring about in a nature, in a person, is a lot of focus on problem solving. Now, basically, if you were to focus on some of the other properties of Mars and Virgo, I mean, Virgo and Mars is a combination of focusing on problem solving. Virgo is also a sign of healing, curing yourself, and your daily routines. So when your focus is basically on solving your own health problems. Also, Virgo is the sign where basically you tend to remove all the confusion and crap, or um, something which is not clear to you, and you want to remove all the things which are hazy to you and get clarity in your life. So Mars there tends to basically, in Virgo, it tends to energize that aspect of Virgo, that you are looking now for clarity, you are now looking for logic, you are now looking for basically the solution. So you're trying to tidy up all the things around you, you're trying to arrange things, you're trying to basically organize them, you're trying to make your your daily routine more organized, because Mars is all about pumping the energy and Virgo is all about putting things in order. But then in this, Mars can actually do something which may not be very likable by other people, because Mars in Virgo also is one of the planets which can cause a lot of criticism, sarcasm, jokes with very dark or black humor. People may not generally like that, and it's a place where basically either if Mercury is not in a very happy state, it can make a person very irritated because you're constantly trying to find faults or trying to criticize or trying to audit situations around you and try to figure out what's wrong. Your focus is on finding faults. Your focus is on finding what's not in order and then set it in order. And it's not something which is going to make other people around you very happy. So you could be looked upon as somebody who's all constantly criticizing, somebody who's always constantly trying to find faults. In your own way, you're basically trying to find those things which are not in order and set them in order, but then doesn't go down well with people around you who may find you as a fault finder, even as a nitpicker. So Mars Virgo is good for a logical person because you are now trying to find um, analysis, patterns of analysis. Data scientists tend to find patterns out of junk thrown at them. So Mars in Virgo also stands for a lot of data scientists who are trying to find logical patterns out of mess that is thrown at them. so, uh, so basically, here in Mars in Virgo, you're trying to get your house in order, and health issues also become a primary focus because Virgo is also the natural sixth house of your basic health, your daily routine, and basically since Mercury during this time will also go retrograde for a while in the next month, uh, you may not be able to get your house in order or get your health in order in one attempt. So you may actually make multiple attempts. So let's move on to basically each of these signs and see what the results for each of these signs are going to be. Now, if you look at the sign of Aries, if you're an Aries Lagna, then basically uh, in the coming month and a half, you're going to basically have Mars, which is the first and eighth lord, actually travel through the sixth house, which is the sign of Virgo. And if you were to just look at some of the results which the first lord in sixth house or the eighth lord in sixth house will bring, first lord in sixth house, as I've already discussed in the previous 5-10 minutes, a lot of your focus is going to be on problem solving, a lot of your focus is going to be on your health. But then Mars also being the eighth house in sixth normally tries to bring emergencies in one's life, because eighth house is the house of sudden happenings, sudden events which are not under your control. I mean, typically accidents, surgeries, any kind of a system breakdown. I mean, those are things or situations which can typically happen with the eighth lord being in sixth. If you're a person whose daily routine is handling machinery, you may see the machinery or things breaking down, systems breaking down, and an emergency like situation actually happening. And this may happen 2-3 times when Mercury actually goes retrograde. And when Mercury goes combust in the first or second week in October, something around that time, I think that can actually lead to some very heated, you can say, um, exchanges between the self and the management, because Mars is the lung lord. And eighth lord in sixth is also a very good combination for the ability to be able to handle a lot of emergency situations, because on a daily basis now you are actually going to be handling emergencies, things which are critically failing, but you need to go put in the effort, fight against the circumstances and get things in order. So that's basically what's going to keep your focus around. Sixth house is also the people who are dependent on you, who are serving you, and basically who are in service, who are performing service to you. And Mars there basically may ask you to logically sort out things for them and set your focus on them so that they are actually able to serve you in the way that you actually want them to. Where again, you may actually over criticize or be overcritical about things. Mars actually in Virgo gives the power to be able to deal quickly, sort out all the problems and challenges very head on, because that's the nature of Mars. Now let's look at some of the aspects that this Mars brings. Now from the sixth house, Mars is going to aspect the ninth house. Now fourth house aspect of Mars is something where you want to protect things, because the fourth house is the Sukhsthan, the place where basically you try to secure yourself, where you want to look for peace of mind, where you want things not to change, but you want to defend it. It's the fourth house is the motherland. So Mars's fourth house brings the characteristics of protecting things which with your own bravery, with your own logic, with your own strength. And Mars actually in its greatest form actually tries to protect people at the cost of giving up its own life, because see, Mars is the lord of the first and the eighth house. So the first means your entire body, and eighth is actually the house of losses, transformation, death. So Mars basically carries the portfolio of both these activities, of not only protecting yourself, which is the first house, but actually giving up your life, which is the eighth house, in the act of protecting yourself or protecting others. So fourth house aspect to Sagittarius. Now, ninth house and the ninth sign typically stands for somebody who's an elder, a superior, an advisor, a boss, or a guru, or somebody who's also a fatherly figure, who's either giving you advice, who's trying to manage you. And Mars here in the sixth house may actually make you defend yourself or the higher ideals for which you stand for. And this could be in situations where you are basically asked to defend it in front of your boss, in front of your father, your parents, and you shall be able to do so successfully by arguing it out, logically reasoning out things, because Mars and Virgo will give you that propensity, that property. And this could lead to some kind of heated situations with the boss, but then at the same time it's not something unethical, because Mars knows how to defend itself. And here the defense is basically the defense of one's higher principles, with one's seniors, elders, people whom you look up to for guidance. Seventh house aspect of Mars is typically where you want to take things head on. You want to take responsibility, but then out there in the open. Because see, seventh house is the house of people who are your natural allies, or your natural, or you can say open enemies. So Mars here would typically want to solve problems, but in a very open way, or in an open platform. Now, 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. 12th house is also the house of losses, expenses, and 12th house is also the house where basically you want to give charity, or I mean, talk about hospitals, jails, lunatic asylums, sanctuaries. I mean, 12th house stands for multiple portfolios. Now, Mars here in the sixth house, aspect in the seventh house, with its seventh aspect, would tend to basically give you the focus to not only be able to do something about your expenses, but then do about something about your own peace of mind. Uh, um, because 12th house is basically when you are your state of mind when you're in meditation. So Mars here is going to make you feel responsible for it. Also, if you have any health issues, because Mars in sixth house is trying to sort out your health issues, it's also going to help you basically take responsibility of the expenses with respect to any hospitalizations, medical expenses. And yes, it's going to help you minimize it, or manage it, or sort it out in some way. Mars aspecting the seventh house also shows hidden enemies may be another cause of your focus, which you will try to sort out in a very open way, in an open frontal kind of way, because Mars doesn't do things which are in a hidden form. Mars does things which are in a very open and very, you can say, head-on kind of a way. Look at the symbol for Mars, which is the ram, and you know how Mars loves to ram things ahead. Long story short, um, Mars here would also typically want you to control your expenses, especially if you're in business, if it's on your health, or if it's basically on any personal items that you're trying to purchase. So Mars here will try to control and sort out things. Now, if you look at the eighth house aspect, then Mars basically in its eighth house aspect tends to transform things. So any planet which is 8 to Mars will tend to get transformed whenever Mahadasha comes, the time period of Mars comes, or whenever Mars gets activated. So here Mars transiting the sixth house will give similar results, where it will try to transform the Lagna. The Lagna here is basically yourself, your personality. So through some kind of daily transformation, or you can say daily routine, which you will tend to pick up, because Virgo and the sixth house is also a sign of daily routines, you will tend to transform yourself. Some you will try to basically pick up new personality. Typically it's a sign of typically what that means is you are going to pick up some habits which are healthy. You may start going to a gym, you may start taking a new set of medicines through which basically you're going to recover. You're basically going to pick out some regimen where you're going to actively work hard to transform your own personality, transform your own self, um, because the eighth house aspect falls on the first house. So so these are the other two aspects which we want to talk about, and let's we can, I think, move on to the next sign of Taurus. So moving on to Taurus, as you can see, Mars here actually owns the 12th and the 7th house. So let's have a brief look at what the 12th house and the 7th house actually stand for. Now, the 12th house is the house typically of losses, of sudden exits, of why sudden? Because the sign of Aries is there, and Aries is not a sign which does things slowly, it does quickly. 12th house is also the house of foreign travel, losses, exits, foreign travel, even hospitals, meditation centers, any place where basically you get confined and you are lost from, I mean, out of mind, out of sight, which is also the 8th house, but then in 12th house you can still come back probably, and the 8th house I think you're gone for good. Okay, jokes apart. So Mars being the 12th house lord here is going to bring some kind of exit, some kind of loss, or some kind of going away of things or vanishing of things. 7th house is the house of not only your partners, your business partner, your public image, the way you a public platform on which you are engaging with other people, and being the 7th and 12th lord, you're going to see the results now coming in the 5th house of Virgo, where the 6th Rashi is. So what that will typically do is, so 5th house is also the house of honor, of position, of rank, of authority, of power. So if you're a person who's a government official, you're going to actually see a struggle or some kind of conflict happening in your government position. Even if you're a person who's doing any kind of service, because Virgo is a sign of service, you're going to see some kind of conflict coming out in the open with higher authorities, with the upper management, and some kind of loss coming to you because of that, or some things may exit in your life because Mars belongs to the 12th house of exits. Now, the 7th house will bring the property of basically all these events happening on a public platform or something which is happening in the open. And since the sign of Scorpio, which is a very, very karmic sign, which is up there in the 7th house, uh, it's somewhere where your energies will go and will get sucked out of you, and it could be a very draining experience. So children, as far as they're concerned, they may bring some kind of unrest, some kind of drain out of money or wealth or your focus, and very conflict-like situation can actually come out with them as well. So whether it's love affairs, whether it's your kids, whether it's your own rank and position authority, expect some kind of not so very pleasant kind of situation appearing over the next month, month and a half. Now, so if you have any struggle which is happening with respect to your own opinions, with your own authority or something, expect not to win in the struggle. You would probably want to spend some time to educate yourself in a technical way or some way in which basically you pick up education which helps you solve your own problems, because Virgo is a sign of chronic problems or chronic challenges. Mars here will bring you the focus to be able to solve them. So if there's something which you have wanted to pick up, which is something which you have always wanted to spend time uh, or resources basically to pick up some kind of, solve some kind of a problem with respect to your um, own skills or something, you could actually spend this time, you could actually do some hard work here. Expect some kind of disappointment or some kind of conflicts if you have a love affair, and if you are into speculations, stock markets, you could expect money to get stuck, or while you are trading or while you're speculating, some kind of um, nitpicking, some kind of verbal conflicts or fights actually happening, and some kind of loss coming in a similar situation. Spends or losses, or you can say money which is basically spent on kids, could actually increase, and whatever gains you want to do, there'll be a lot of struggle, but in the end gains may not be that great as per this transit. However, these results may vary from chart to chart in case you have some benefics, or if you have, say, the 5th lord sitting in 2nd house, or say the 11th house, you could have some initial losses, after which you could have some fantastic gains. So please use your discretion before you start thinking so negative or you reach a negative conclusion. So you would want to look at astrology and all these and your chart in a more wholesome way. Okay, so let's come to the aspects which basically now Mars is going to throw. So Mars's 4th house aspect is basically going to happen on the 8th house. Now 8th house is typically the house of inheritances. It's also the house of your in-laws, also any kind of hidden or spiritual knowledge, because Sagittarius being in the 8th house, typically one tends to keep one's own spiritual thoughts, higher knowledge, beliefs in a very hidden way. It doesn't reveal them in the public, and talks about them in very secretive and very hush-hush kind of way. Now, somewhere, uh, either with your in-laws or either when it comes to basically your own inheritances, if there are conflicts which are going to arise, you will have to stand by your principles and defend them, because situations could come where you may be asked uh, to basically come and defend those thoughts of yours, those principles of yours, or those beliefs of yours. And situations will arise where basically you may have conflicts which involve your own hard-earned, or you can say hard thought-out beliefs. And the seventh aspect of Mars for a Taurus ascendant is basically going to fall on the 11th house. Now, this seventh aspect ideally could give you gains, but from competition in business and whether in service. And if you are a businessman, or you could be actually be facing more expenses, or expenses has come to your business, and your profits are going to come after some expenses or some significant losses have been made, and these could be very sudden and very impulsive. These losses could be because of some conflicts arising in the understanding of some documents, or this could be because of some sudden travel or sudden expenses you had not thought about. If you look at the eighth aspect of Mars, you're actually looking at the 12th house. Um, Not a very good aspect if you're actually thinking about your own bedroom life, because Mars being the 12th lord aspecting the 12th house can show certain transformations or sudden changes in your bedroom life because of some sudden conflicts, or because of you actually trying to solve your own life's problems and suddenly deciding that, hey, uh, I need to have my I need to have a different approach uh, to my married life, or because Mars is also the seventh lord, and which can actually create some stress in the bedroom life. So that intimacy may suddenly get affected, or it may have some very heated moments or arguments. Also, you may actually end up changing your expenses and basically impulsively go around spend money on things which may not have been very well thought out, because again, Mars being the 12th thought is going to make you change the way you spend your money, and basically make you spend on things which you may not have thought of before. So having covered Taurus Lagna, let's move on to Gemini. Now for a Gemini Lagna, Mars is the lord of the, it's going to be transiting the fourth house, but then it's going to be the lord of the sixth and the 11th. And this is where say for a Sagittarius Lagna Venus, and for Gemini Lagna Mars tends to bring some very mixed results, but then in very different nature. Mars being the sixth and the 11th lord, your desires for a Gemini Lagna, your desires are going to get completed after competing, or you can say solving problems or working really hard in a very chronic way. The more you basically keep working hard, the more basically your gains are going to come, and vice versa. The more your gains are going to come, you're actually going to have to work very, very hard, because your opponents are actually going to come and create some kind of chronic problems for you. So Gemini is the lagna of chronic problem solving, or focusing on problems which are unsolvable, because of Scorpio being in the sixth house. Now, what properties it gives Mars um, for a Gemini Lagna, that not only are your desires but your problems are also going to come through the same planet. And being in the fourth house, which is the Sukh or the sign of your own peace of mind, your own comforts, Mars here is basically gonna bring a lot of focus not only on a house but solving the problems of your house, which could be basically be related to your peace of mind, your own interiors of the house, basically be your daily work, daily routine in the house itself, or it could even be the very construction of the physical construction of the house, whereby you may think that, okay, I need to break this thing down, I need to make something better, or the desire to basically say that, okay, these are some parts of my house which I don't like, or these are some parts of my vehicle which need to be sorted out. So Mars here is going to basically put your focus in terms of solving your own peace of mind, which will come by changing things around in your house, in your vehicle, and even in your sleep. So So Mars in the fourth house typically makes a person destroy things and begin things again, because Mars is a builder. Mars carries the energy of the eighth Rashi, which is Scorpio, which is of destruction, and also the first Rashi, which is creation. Hence, Mars tends to destroy and rebuild things in the fourth house. So you could be needing vehicle repairs or some kind of fixes during this time, or some machinery or things around in a house may need fixing and repairing. Now, if we look at the fourth house aspect, we're going to see basically Mars aspecting the seventh house of Sagittarius. So, which means that on an open platform with your wife, with your business partners, you're going to have arguments in the open, which basically where you may actually feel the need of defending your own higher principles. Again, Sagittarius being the sign which is being evicted, you may actually have to stand up for your principles in the open, and where it may lead to some heated kind of exchange between you, your spouse, even your business partners, or with people you meet on a daily basis out there in the open. So people that you do business dealings with. Um, Not a very great time for business enthusiasts, because this normally can bring some kind of a conflict with people, with business partners in the open. Now, if you look at the seventh house aspect of Mars, uh, this is a good aspect, because Mars aspecting the 10th house tends to bring your own professional work and your professional commitments to completion and fruition. A good time for basically people to um, make decisions related to their office, and decisions related to their business, decisions related to their um, office work, where they may be committed, but they may actually think a lot about the office work from the home itself, as to what should I do to solve problems of my business, and they will try to take those problems head on as well. Now, if you look at Mars's eighth aspect, you're looking at the sign of Aries, and this Mars can actually give you the desire of basically having either a new house or a new property, because Mars is the planet of desires. But then your own desires could themselves also get transformed, because Mars here from the fourth house is aspecting through its eighth aspect on the 11th house. So this can suddenly change your desires. You may feel that my income is not enough and I need to struggle hard and fight hard, or I need to look for a new job whereby I can earn more, or I need to have more gains in my life, because Mars is all about competing and taking on the next challenge and doing something new. So new desires could suddenly appear on the horizon, and you may start chasing them. Uh, so that's all for Gemini Lagna for the time being. Let's move on to the Cancer Lagna. Now, for Cancer, Mars rules the 10th house and the 5th house. And if you look at the 10th house where Aries is, you could be expecting some new opportunities in your workplace. Things around in your office could change, things around in your professional work life could change, or you could take some decisions um, that if I need to basically solve my problems with respect to my skill sets, with respect to my capability, with respect to my rank, I need to probably do something fresh with my career. I need to start in a new place, new work, or somewhere basically I need to make a new start to my career. I need to start something new. Maybe it could be a new set of clients, a new office, something like that. Mars being the Yog Karak actually is considered good, because it's the fifth lord in third as well as the 10th lord in third. So during this time, because fifth house is the house of education and 10th house is the house of profession, and Mars, its lord, has actually come to the third house, your focus may be in doing some kind of a daily practice, because Virgo is a sign of daily practice, whereby you are using your hands. So if you're a musician, you're going to practice your instrument. If you are a computer scientist, or if you're a programmer, you're going to be programming many hours a day, pick up new skills, and basically get really good in terms of solving problems and basically enhancing your skills, enhancing your problem solving skills. So if you are somebody who's planning to pick up certifications, if you're planning to pick up some solve some conflicts with siblings or with teammates, this is a good time, and you're going to basically increase your skills in this time. Be very careful, because Mars in the third house could give you some kind of, because third house is also the house of documents, and Mars being there can actually make you write emails or sign documents in a little bit of haste, and which can actually bring about conflicts. So any kind of official email, because Mars is the lord of the 10th house as well, you need to be careful because that can bring conflicts. Don't read emails and respond them in haste. Do not sign them or write mails very quickly because that could lead to trouble. Because Mars being in Virgo could bring around some conflicts with your teammates and your at your workplace. Now, if you look at the seventh aspect of Mars, which is basically where it is aspecting the ninth house, uh, it is a place where basically you could face some kind of a direct open confrontation, uh, which could be as a result of the emails that have been sending slightly rashly, with your bosses, with your superiors, or the people who are actually guiding you. And also, if you are people if in your business you are taking advice from people who are guiding you in your business, you could actually face conflicts with them as well. This could be even be meaning in a way some kind of conflict with your gurus or people you have faith in, and this could come out in the open and you could have some open verbal conflicts with such people. Now, which could also mean that you could have a direct head-on competition with your boss or conflict with your boss through emails or through some kind of communication. If you look at the fourth house aspect of Mars, now this is something where, now, the fourth to Virgo is the house of Sagittarius, which is the sign of your daily work routine. It's also the Sagittarius being the sign. It also shows your father or the places of which are places which denote places of religious worship. Mars aspecting that could basically create situations not only with your boss, with your father, but also uh, with any kind of a place of learning. If say you're a student. A, a situation of conflict where you are having to defend yourself for the choices that you have made and prove your righteousness around that what you did was right or the procedure that you followed was right. So say if you wrote some kind of a scientific paper, or you say if you wrote some kind of a mail, then you are the original content creator of that particular email, and it's not plagiarized, or um, you stood by your principles and that you did not copy or cheat or do anything in that way. There could be conflicts in your workplace because of that, and this could be something which could be monitored by your guru, your boss, or whoever, and or he may be involved in some way in these kind of conflicts. Uh, but of course, Sagittarius being the sign where you can, if you just stick to your principles, it's going to work fine for you. Faith is going to work wonders for you. If you do that, Mars is going to help you basically get out of this kind of problem. Just stick to your principles and don't become a Rahu during this time. And coming to the 8th house aspect, where Mars is going to be aspecting the 10th house, I've already covered that you could expect some professional changes in your workplace where Mars could actually make you look for new opportunities. So this could mean a job change, this could mean picking up new certifications which help you in a job change, or picking up new skills which basically help you transform your work in case if you're doing some kind of a business. So expect some kind of changes at your workplace, definitely. If nothing else, your place of working itself might change. So your office might change. You may be working the same company. Something like that will happen, and happen suddenly. Some transformation or change would be coming. So enough about Cancer. Moving on to Leo. Now Leo Lagna has the fourth and the ninth house getting activated, which is I would say the fourth and ninth houses which belong to Mars, and the transit Mars is going to have is basically through your second house, which is the sign of Virgo. Now this basically brings all the logical problem solving nature of Mars into the second house. So problems related to your father, your bosses, problems related to your home, your house, you are going to solve by basically owning them and making sure that you have your finances set out in a way so that you can actually not only pursue your higher principles, in case if you have any kind of an education that you want to pursue, to be able to pursue that, you're going to set your financial situation in order. If there are any debts that you may have, this Mars is going to help you sort out your financial problems or making sure you are debt free. Also, if there is any connection with respect to home loans, this Mars again in Virgo is basically help you sort out any kind of home loans which may be troubling you, giving you lack of peace of mind, or creating some conflicts in the house of the family. This Mars will actually help you sort out those problems financially. Also, Mars being the nitpicker in Virgo, your own problem solving skills could actually bring some kind of conflicts in the family itself. Why? Because Mars is a nitpicker here in Virgo, and you could be using some kind of sarcastic way of basically bringing about changes or transformations in the family. Why? Because you want to solve problems, you want to take them head on, you want to own them, you want to tell the family how to solve them, and you want to solve them for yourself as well. So any health problems, any financial problems, you're going to basically take them head on, but not only just for yourself, but the entire family, which is where the conflicts can actually arise. Now, another interesting thing about this Mars transit is that you could actually take debts to solve your financial problems as well, which is a very interesting combination which Leo ascendants are going to actually have. So, talking about the aspects during this transit, Mars's fourth house aspect is going to fall on the fifth house, and the fifth house is basically where your kids, or if you're a boss, then your employees would need guidance from you. Your children, in terms of education, may need some guidance from them, and you would need to ensure that they follow the right principles, and that their education, and even in some cases your own education, actually follows the right path. So there are going to be basically be a test or a conflict around your own beliefs, around your education, your kids education, your kids thought processes, your kids values. Also, when it comes, if you're a person who's having who's in a relationship, who's in love with somebody, uh, again, conflicts with them based on your own thought processes and your beliefs is going to happen. We are going to have to defend them and follow the right path. Your long-term roadmap would be clear with respect to your financial speculations, where you need to invest to gain more money out of that, and you would get clarity around that, and you would probably make uh, a lot of long-term investments during this time, but they could be done a little impulsively because Mars is a planet of quick actions. So you may not think before you actually execute these kind of investments. Now, if you look at the seventh house aspect, the seventh house aspect is happening on the eighth house. So with respect to your own free thoughts with your in-laws, or even with respect to your own inheritance, or with respect to your own hidden knowledge, you could see a direct conflict happening with respect to the freedom that you may have with respect to your thoughts around these ideas. Now, in case if you're a person who's married, then this could be conflict with in-laws with respect to your own decision making independence, with respect to your own faith and beliefs again, and your spouse could be somebody who in whose financial affairs you may actually tend to nitpick, or you may try to openly confront her own expenses, because Pisces, being the 12th Rashi, is also the sign of expenses. So if she's spending too much, which is what you may believe, then you may actually try to pick up some kind of an open argument, or some kind of a channel whereby you will come out of the open saying that, hey, we need to basically solve this problem, which is something which he or she may not like. Now, if you look at the 8th house aspect of Mars, it's going to fall on the 9th house. Now, the 9th house, Aries, typically shows a person who is very aggressive, very defensive, and at the same time impulsive about their own beliefs, about their beliefs on dharma, their higher principles, and the general value set that they have. Now, that could basically undergo some kind of a transformation, which could happen in the heat of the moment, some kind of verbal conflict within the family itself, or you may impulsively decide to change your values and make which may look a little aggressive to people around you. Why? Because Mars transiting the second house, aspecting the ninth house, could bring conflicts with your bosses, with your teachers, with your religious precepts, with if you're a student, maybe with universities or university heads, and this could change their approach towards you and your approach towards them as well. So you could suddenly find that your boss is changing, you could suddenly find that your teachers are changing, or if you're a person who's in some kind of professional workplace, your guides, mentors, peers, career counselors, they could be changing very suddenly, and this could be because of some verbal clash, or some nitpicking, or some criticism that you may do, which you may feel is some kind of way of solving some problem, but then may not be taken in the same right spirit by by the other party. So anyways, coming to the sign of Virgo, which is the next house we're going to talk about. For Virgo nativities, Mars would rule the 8th and the 3rd house, and the transit Mars is going to have is going to be on the Lagna. Now this is a significant transit because uh, Mars being the 8th lord, the 8th house of transformation, Mars being the ruler of the 1st and the 8th house, which is actually one of the houses of new beginnings and transformation, the 1st and the 8th house, is actually going to go through the 1st house. The 1st house carrying the sign of Virgo, which is a sign of conflicts. Not and so it's not a very pleasant situation, but at the same time, if taken in a very constructive way, you could be sorting out a lot of problems, take them head on, but at the same time, come with too much of criticism, too much of verbal conflicts in the process while doing them. However, there is change coming in your own personality. There's going to be a change with respect to the way you solve problems itself, because Mars is the 8th lord here. You're going to apply different strategies now to solve the age-old problems that you have always had. Uh, and typically when the 8th house lord is conjunct the Lagna or the Lagna lord, you would see a person bringing one's own soul's power or willpower to the platform, to one's life to solve problems. Such people tend to look for the strength in their own psychic, you can say, framework, rather than look for any external help. So you're going to be solving problems yourself through your own deeper instincts, because 8th house is not the house of logic, it's the house of instincts. When you are basically thinking somewhere in the middle of your uh, in that region where it's your instincts versus your subconscious, which is the 3rd house. So habits ingrained inside you from past births are going to come and help you solve your problems and change you as well in the process. Now, these changes could be with respect to your own health, with respect to your own um, with respect to the conflicts that may come to you, and you may actually come out as a person who's actually slightly more sarcastic, or you can say somebody who's very hard to get along with under these circumstances. But then it's going to actually change you and make you stronger in the process, and bring out your soul's spiritual strength in the process, though in a very conflicting way. uh, Mars being the 3rd lord could bring some conflicts with teammates, siblings, people with whom you basically transact or communicate on a day-to-day basis, and your dealings with them could change because of some conflicting situations that would come or arise during these kind of transactions that you're having with them. Now, Virgo also being the sign of debts and health, you could actually change the way you approach your own health problems. You could try to transform your personality by going through a very different regimen. Again, Mars for Aries Lagna, Mars goes through the 6th house and gives the 8th house aspect to the Lagna. Mars here being the 8th lord itself has now come to the Lagna. So change is coming to you. You're not going out of the way to make changes. Change is coming to you. So something sudden or cataclysmic could happen, which would force you to basically change yourself. Unlike for an Aries Lagna, where the Lagna Lord has gone to the 6th house, where you yourself will go and take the initiative to change things, here change is coming to you. The 8th Lord is coming to you. That means something suddenly will happen where basically you may be forced to change your daily routine, and you may be forced to change your way of approaching problems generally in life. Now let's look at the aspects that this Mars has. Now Mars has a 4th house aspect to the 4th house itself, sitting in Lagna, which means some tensions could brew up at home, because your thoughts, your beliefs could get questioned, and could get questioned, and that could give rise to some kind of conflicts at home itself, which where you may be asked to defend yourself in those kind of situations. Your beliefs are gonna be questioned at home, and you're gonna argue about them and defend yourself at home because of that. So be very thoughtful of that. And Mars being your 3rd lord coming to the Lagna, 3rd house is the house of driving, travel, short distance travel. Be very careful not to pick up fights along the way. Don't do any rage driving. Do not pick up some kind of a conflict while you're driving. I mean, stay cool, meditate if possible, and because that problem could actually then come home, which is where the fight could actually come to your own house. and since Mars is also aspecting in 7th house, your spouse could be involved, and you do not want these kind of situations happening where um, any road rage basically brings trouble to your family or to your spouse. So be very careful on that front. However, Mars being in the Lagna, aspecting the 7th house, uh, any expenses you have which basically get discussed in the open, because 7th house is the house of an open platform, could bring some kind of conflicts between you and your spouse. So better not discuss expenses on the open platform, because, in the open, which is what your spouse may be inclined to discuss, because that's going to bring some heated reaction from you, because Mars is going to be transiting your Lagna, and that could make you basically say something which could eventually bring some kind of loss, or some kind of you can say isolation with respect to your relationship. You may have a tendency to again criticize your wife's expenses or the expenses of your business partners, and you may try to control and direct the situation, because Mars is the one transiting your Lagna. Now if you look at the 8th house aspect, that is where it is going to be aspecting its own sign of Aries. So Mars aspecting its own sign of Aries, although it's the sign lord aspecting its own sign, but 8th house aspect of Mars tends to transform things and may bring sudden emergencies as well. So be very careful again, while you are trying to criticize others, or you're trying to be rash or head on in any kind of a way, or say something very sarcastic to somebody, because that could bring sudden emergency in your life. Sudden problems could come, and which could basically bring a huge transformation in yourself, because again the 8th lord Mars is sitting in the Lagna. So be very careful. Expect some kind of sudden emergency coming to you in this transit. Okay, moving on to Libra Lagna. Now for Libra Lagna, the signs which are getting activated are the 2nd house and the 7th house. The 2nd house of Kutumb, family, larger family, your resources, your savings, your cash reserves, with the sign of Scorpio sitting, the hidden sign of Scorpio, and the 7th house uh, of Aries, which is basically the house of your partners, even your open enemies, your marriage partner, your business partner, your dealings in the open, social events where parties where basically men and women get together in social arrangements, celebrations of those kinds. Now for Libra Lagna, Mars is going to be going through your 12th house, so it is basically the 7th and the 12th house going, sorry, 7th and 2nd house lord going through the 12th house. So Virgo being there in the 12th house shows you're gonna basically again solve problems with respect to your expenses, and even with respect to your bedroom life, and even with respect to your travel and your spiritual beliefs. But this can cause conflicts, because now the sixth sign of Virgo has entered the sign. So problem solving could actually lead to conflicts in such cases. Um since the 12th is also the 11th from the 2nd, that means you could be in conflict, or you could criticize, or you could pick up fights with respect to the desires of your larger family, because the 12th house is the 11th from the 2nd. So if there are desires that your larger family has, you're going to get in conflict with them and at loggerheads with them. If there are uh, relationship issues, bedroom life issues, I think this is going to be a time of conflict for the Libra Lagna. Since the 7th lord has actually gone to the 12th house, and the 2nd lord has gone to the 12th house, you could actually have some kind of an exit of a family member of your or your spouse after some kind of a conflict. So they could be moving out on you, or they could vanish from the scene suddenly because of some conflict that they have with you. So be very careful when you're trying to basically, when you enter situations like that. Uh, you may think of gaining through some kind of loans which you may give to somebody in the family, um, or your family may think of giving loans to somebody and basically gaining through that, or you may want to put up some cash of yours as loan to somebody, but that may end up in some kind of conflict, some kind of loss, because Virgo is now in your 12th house. So loans or money given to somebody as a loan could suddenly bring loss to you. So please be very careful on that front. 12th house Mars normally tends to bring sudden anger, because 12th house is also the house of your dream state when you have gone to sleep. So which also means 12th house basically can bring sudden fits of anger when you say you're sitting alone, when you are doing some kind of creative work, some kind of meditation, or you're trying to be alone by yourself. That could give you a lot of unmanaged anger, which is something you would need to manage. Now, if you look at the aspects that Mars gives the 7th house aspect to the 8th aspect to the 7th house, which is basically going to bring changes in your public image, changes with respect to your marriage partner, also changes with respect to the way you deal with people in public. If you have any business partners, you would expect some kind of transformation. If you have clients who have been giving you a hard time in your business, you are going to change relationship with them and acquire them. So you're going to change those clients as they appear on the horizon. You may actually have to travel to acquire them as well, because now the 7th lord is in the 12th, and from the 12th Mars is aspecting your 7th house. So in order to bring changes or to resolve any conflicts, you may have to travel to resolve these kind of issues with them. But there's going to be overall be a stress dealing with them. If you look at the 4th house aspect, the 4th house aspect is going to the house of Sagittarius, which is your 3rd house. So when it comes to dealing with your siblings, when it comes to dealing with your teammates, expect some kind of fights, or you can say some defensive mechanism you're going to basically show to defend your higher principles when it comes to dealing with them. These could be your neighbors, these could be your friends, these could be people you meet on the social media platform, or these could be people that you meet when you're going to the temple, because Sagittarius is also a sign of religious learning and places of learning in general. Expect some arguments on those sides, but you'll be able to defend these kind of situations pretty well. If you look at the 7th house aspect of Mars, it's going to be falling on the 6th house of Pisces. Now, 6th house and Pisces being there typically shows some kind of expense with respect to your medical, to your health, your recovery, and it could be basically be even with debts with respect to your expenses. So typically Libra ascendant either tends to give loans or tends to take loans to be able to meet their expenses, which is something which in this case maybe something you may want to solve by basically Mars in the 12th house aspecting the 6th house. So if you have given out some loans, if there are some other expenses that you have which are leading to a conflict like situation or a loan like situation, you will again take these head on and basically try to solve these problems. However, one thing I would want to say that the 8th house aspect, be very careful with conflicts out in the open, because this can change your public image as well, as one of somebody being rash or somebody being slightly aggressive in general. Coming to the next sign of Scorpio. For Scorpio Lagna, this is the lord of Mars is the lord of the 6th house and the Lagna, and basically Mars is going to be traveling through the 11th house. Now basically what this Mars is going to do is it's going to help you solve problems for people who are in your workplace, because Mars is the lord of the 6th house and the Lagna, but of people who are placed in job networks, people who are placed up in higher up positions, with whom basically some kind of um, problem solving could be actually be followed up by some kind of conflict as well. Sixth lord being in 11th typically shows gains through a lot of hard work, through a lot of struggle. So one has to put exceptionally long hours and really sweat it out, really work hard to be able to get those gains in salary, in professional networks, or gains from higher ups in your job, or through large networks or large organizations that you want to join in general. Now, so expect to put in longer hours, a lot of hard work, a lot of energy, whether you're going to a gym, whether you're doing workouts. But in the long term, it's going to be gainful for you, not only from a health perspective, but also from a financial gains perspective. So whatever is your work routine, if you can just log it out, this is a time where you can actually get some good gains. Now, if you look at the aspects that Mars has, the fourth house aspect is gonna come to the second house. Now, so what that typically means is your savings are gonna be something which you're going to defend aggressively by making sure that you keep saving some money in your bank account or somewhere for the long term, and which you're going to basically set up as a long-term discipline for yourself. So you're going to save money. You're not going to spend that much, um, and you're going to struggle hard to basically make sure that you have a salary raise by working hard, by solving difficult problems for your office, of the people that you work for. If you look at the seventh house aspect, it is coming to the fifth house, and basically this is the fifth house having the sign of Pisces typically means you could be basically be having some problem, not problem, you would try to solve the problem of any kind of loss in your position, or any kind of loss or expense coming to your position or to your kids, or any kind of loss that you may feel could come to your love affairs or your relationships, and you're going to basically try to take it head on and try to solve those problems. Also, if you look at the eighth house aspect, which falls on the sixth house itself, your um, your desire to basically move up higher up in life by struggling hard towards your goal is basically going to make you change your daily workplace. And Aries being in the sixth house can give you some very explosive way of basically starting your work routine or changing your work routine. Now, since uh, Scorpio itself is a sign of transformation, the Aries in sixth house could actually make you look for ways of transforming your daily routine in a very explosive way, or too radical or too sharp a way, which may actually look very extreme to some people. But then that's how it is, and that's how it's going to work out for the Scorpio Lagna. Moving on to the next Lagna of Sagittarius. Uh, Sagittarius is the Lagna where your fifth and 12th house Mars is going to get activated, and that's going to happen in your 10th house. Now, 10th house is typically the house which is your office, your workplace, and having the sign Virgo over there, it's basically the daily struggle that you have at your workplace, where Mars is going to basically show the maximum results. Also, the 10th house is your father's extended family, larger family, and your father's resources, savings. So what that means is your father is going to basically have some hard time, or you can say solve his own financial problems uh, by through some kind of loss which is going to come to you, because Mars is the lord of the 12th house, and which could also mean that you could be having some loss by you giving some loan to your father or your father's family. It could even be your boss. So uh, now, since Mars is here, also the fifth lord, and the fifth lord going to the 10th house, it shows some kind of struggle at the workplace with respect to your rank, your honor, your position, your power, your authority, and some conflicts which are going to arise at your workplace because of the power or authority that you may have. So you're going to basically try to solve problems at your workplace using your either your education or your power in some way. That can bring conflicts to you. But Mars in the 10th house typically tends to prevail at the workplace, and you are able to get your things done or get your things through. But Mars also being the 12th house lord in 10th is going to bring some kind of loss to your profession in the process as well. Now, if you look at the aspects that this Mars brings, the 7th house aspect is going to happen to the fourth house. What that kind of does is your own peace of mind at home and your own free thoughts are basically going to come under attack because of the kind of conflicts you pick up at your workplace. So whatever happens at your workplace, whatever problem solving, whatever uh, way in which you basically solve, you go about using authority to solve problems at workplace, are going to affect your sleep, your peace of mind, and this is something which you may not be able to solve, but it's something which you will try to address during this time. You may bring the workplace tension back home and hence disturb your own coolness at home. Now, if you look at the next aspect, which is Mars aspect in the fifth house, um, the struggles that you pick up at workplace could also, or the problems that you solve at your workplace could also be directed at you trying to change your rank or your power, your authority at your workplace. So it could be something that you could be looking for something new, or because of the work that you do in your professional life, it could actually change your rank or your some kind of transformation may happen in your rank itself. It could also mean a job change because Mars being the fifth lord sitting in the 10th house could make you change your workplace because you could be looking out for a newer rank for your job. Now, the fourth house aspect that this Mars brings is basically going to be on your Lagna. Your entire personality and your own self is basically going to come into question when you are basically going to go out in your work or your professional life, whereby you may be asked to defend your higher beliefs at your workplace in general. So expect those to be questioned at different ways or at different levels. Moving on to the Capricorn Lagna. For Capricorn Lagna, the houses in question would be the fourth house and the 11th house, which are going to be the houses of Mars, and Mars is going to basically go through the ninth house of Virgo. Now, what that does is an intense desire, an intense peace of mind that comes to the person, to basically criticize the boss, criticize the higher ups, tell them instead what to do instead of listening to them. Not a very good position when it comes to basically when it comes to looking for favors from higher ups or for direction or help from people who are going to be managing you. It's a period of conflict with them. If you're looking to get any kind of problem resolution with respect to your father, make sure you're not over criticizing that in the process of basically trying to solve problems or get to solve problems with your parents, because Mars is also the fourth lord. You end up criticizing them more, or being rash and rude with them, being sarcastic with them instead of actually trying to solve problems. So Mars in the ninth house is going to basically make you uh, have the huge desire to basically tell others or tell your elders or seniors to basically do what you want them to do instead of you listening to them. Uh, Also, be very careful driving. You may impulsively try to change either the internal structure of your house or maybe your vehicles. In some way, you're going to basically change the way you derive your own peace of mind here, because Mars is going to give the 8th house aspect to Aries, which is your 4th house. Now, 11th house Lord Mars going to the 9th house, there is a huge desire to be the boss in some way. So that desire of being the boss comes from the fact that you're not actually a person who's a boss right now, but you want to tell who the boss is by telling the boss, by criticizing him in some way. Not a good thing to do, but please be careful on that front. Now let's look at the aspects of Mars. Now Mars's fourth aspect is going to Sagittarius, which is um, the 12th house. This shows that you will try to sacrifice and bring under control your expenses, uh, which could be on education, which could be on travel, which could even be on your um, because of some hidden enemies that you could have, who could be sitting in positions of authority, because Sagittarius has become the sign sitting in the 12th house. And if you look at the seventh aspect, it's basically falling on Pisces, which is the third house. Now you could now Mars basically being the sitting in the ninth house could give you sudden travel also, although this is not going to be happen in all the cases. Um, but its seventh aspect on the sign of Pisces, the natural Kal Purush 12th house, could give you sudden expenses because of travel, or because sudden expenses because of your siblings, or travel involved because of your siblings. And this could lead to some kind of open verbal skirmish or conflict with them, which is something you may try to control, but is not going to have a very pleasant outcome. Some kind of control you may want to exercise on the freedom of your siblings or the freedom of your parents may also bring some conflict in that arena because of the 7th house aspect. If you look at the 8th house aspect that Mars has, as I've already told you, you may have the sudden urge or impulse to basically change things at your house, which could give you more peace of mind. This could be the internals of the house, this could be some restructuring, this could be some restructuring or some fixing up of your vehicle in the house, and this would be a little impulsive. This would not be something which would happen with some clear forethought. Moving on to the next lug of Aquarius, where Mars will be the 3rd and the 10th lord. Now here is basically a sign which basically Mars going through the 8th house of Virgo, being itself the lord of Scorpio, which is sitting in the 10th house, and also Mars being the 3rd lord of Aries, could bring some kind of an impulsive or sudden change in your career, or sudden transformations in your career or your career aspirations, or what you tend to gain from your career. And this could arise after a small conflict, because Virgo being the sign of conflicts, sitting in the 8th house, there could be sudden unexpected conflict at your workplace or around your job or around your work, which could lead to transformation of your work itself. Now if you're a person who's into insurance, wills, legacies, uh, you could actually impulsively, not necessarily make losses, but you could impulsively or rashly go around managing those kind of documents. That can lead to trouble, because Virgo here is sitting in the 6th house where Mars is sitting. And be very careful when you're handling wills, legacies, insurance papers, because you could impulsively go around doing things, signing documents, doing something with documents, because Mars is the 3rd lord, sign at places where they may not be needed or they may not be correct, which could bring about some chronic problems with respect to these documents, because this is the 8th house where Mars is transiting from, and it has a sign of conflicts in the 8th house, which is basically bringing the energy of chronic problems with respect to your documents, which are going to be long lasting. You may actually be at this time be involved in some kind of problem solving for your in-laws, who could be going through some health problems or some debt-based problems, and your energies and willpower would be needed to solve those problems. So some focus area there as well. However, if you look at the aspects of Mars aspecting the 11th house of Sagittarius, you would protect your gains, your bank balances, and your salaries at all costs, in spite of all the transformation and changes that your career may go through. You may actually want to make sure that your cash reserves are protected, that your salaries are and your money in your gain for the long term are basically protected. You would tend to protect your bottom line in the process. Also, if you look at the 7th house aspect, the 7th house aspect is falling on the 2nd house of Pisces. So again, this Mars is going to make sure that your bank balance stays okay by you focusing that your expenses are minimized, especially on your family, and no spend. You're going to curtail your spendthrift nature in all ways. Also, some kind of shrewdness you're going to show, some kind of thriftiness you're going to show with respect to the expenses that you make on your family in the whole process. Master's aspect on the 3rd house basically shows that you're going to basically open up new skills or arenas of new opportunities or new skills you're going to basically pick up during this transformation that you're going to have uh, in your career, in your place of work, new initiatives that you're going to bring, new daily habits or new skills you're going to pick up. This Mars can also give you a change of house, because 3rd house is the 12th from the 4th, and hence can bring a sudden change in your residence, or a thought at least that I need to buy, or I may need to move in the future to a new place. Hence I would want to make provisions for the same. Now moving on to the next lagna, the Pisces lagna, Mars here controls the 2nd and the 9th house. The 2nd house of basically your savings, your resources, your larger kutumba, and the ninth house of your higher principles, your beliefs, your gurus, your teachers, precepts, bosses. Now, Mars here is going to be traversing your seventh house of your spouse, your legal partners, your business partners, your clients. And what this means is that your ego, because second house is also your ego, your pride, and your higher principles, which is what the ninth house stands for, are going to basically bring some kind of criticism in the public or open arena, either with your spouse or your business partners or your clients. And that can lead to conflicts in the open. And this is while you may be having the approach that you want to solve the financial problem or the general way in which your deals need to go, or in which your married life need to go, or your clients, the way your relationship with them needs to go. But then this could be looked upon in a very critical way, as openly criticizing people that you should not, and this can actually strain your relationships with all these people. So be very careful, because this could affect your finances. This could also affect your long-term goals. Father's health may also need some kind of help, because the ninth lord is basically going to go through the seventh house of Virgo. So his health problems may actually come out in the open, and you may need to actually take care of him, or take responsibility of his health issues. Uh, if you or your spouse jointly, or if your spouse by himself has taken any kind of a loan, this could actually become a point of contention, out in or some kind of a point of conflict in public, and that can lead to some kind of a public fight as well. So coming to the aspects that Mars actually throws, Mars from the 7th house throws the aspect on the 10th house. So what that means is, in your workplace, your own beliefs and your professional ethics might get questioned, but then it's something which you will tend to defend, and you could have scenarios there where basically why you took certain decisions, why you advised some people in a certain way, could come into question and under scrutiny or some kind of criticism, and this scrutiny could come out in the public. Mars's seventh aspect comes to the Lagna. So what that means is, with respect to your own personality, with respect to your own freedom of thoughts, you are going to basically face some criticism or opposition coming from your spouse and your business partners. Also, what that also means is that if you're a person who's doing business, then the way you do business may come under criticism, and that could bring about some conflicts on the open platform. Also, your spouse may try to control your expenses in some way, and try to manage it, and that can also lead to some heated kind of discussions, uh, some criticism coming to you on that front. Now, if you look at the eighth house aspect actually goes to Aries, and you may impulsively change your bank accounts, your savings, or you may uh, end up saving money in ways, or invest them slightly rashly in places, thinking that you're actually saving money by investing it in different places, but you may make some hasty decisions and end up losing some money in the process. So please make sure where you safely keep your money, or you safely keep your resources, because hasty decisions could actually end up burning some money in the process. And what you bring to your house, where you spend your money on, it will be looked upon in a very rash way. So you may be thinking that you are actually bringing assets for your house, but they could be looked upon as expenses or rash expenses done in the heat of the moment. There could be certain circumstances where your bank account could actually deplete, because you may have to take certain responsibility of people in the house, where you may be actually asked upon to come and be the man of the house. Doesn't matter if you are the man or the woman, from a gender perspective. So anyways, wrapping up for all the 12 lagna, these are the results because of Mars and Virgo. For more updates, you can follow our Facebook page for Karmic Path, and if you whatever your thoughts are regarding this video, feel free to comment in the comment section below. Thanks, and have a nice day. Take care. Bye.